Craig helped build a software company, two distribution companies, and a value-added integrator. In his capacity as a consultant, he has led or coached clients in business development to begin or grow their revenue streams in the commercial and federal markets.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Jay, we'll walk through this, and certainly it's a conversation. So if you see something that is really interesting to you and you want us to go deeper in it, let's have at it. Okay. So what is global? A couple of questions that certainly people have is Global Waterworks is a online community. We are a nonprofit. So we're 501c3. We are open and free 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We bring together experts, process, and technology to solve water issues locally and globally. We are in 88 countries right now, plus certainly a significant presence in the United States. And as we walk through this, we will touch on various areas of Global Waterworks and where we have extended ourselves in the largest searchable technology database in the industry, events calendar where you can search and look at events globally. We have communication hubs, we have collaborations, because we feel very, very strongly that it takes all the ecosystem to solve the global water crisis is all there. It's just somebody needs to bring it together, and that's what Global Waterworks does, is we bring it all together. We connect it. We're connectors. You've already heard who I am. We're here really to talk about, the headline on this was 5 quick wins in water. So we're going to get to that. We're going to talk about why there's necessity for quick wins, and based on, Jay, the work you do, you know that certainly pipe in the ground fails, and we've got an infrastructure challenge, and what you see in Lexington is multiplied globally, certainly, and we'll talk about that. We're going to go through a little bit on what we do and how we do it, and what some of our technology companies do and how they do it. And then we'll lead with the opportunity here to become a part of Global Waterworks. It's free, and when you do that, you'll have access to all the documents, all the documentations and research that's there. You'll have access to all our collaborations. You'll have access to all of our technology and access to all of our events and journeys and communication hubs. So let's take a look here. Sources of insight for continued learning. Certainly we're here with Scranton Gillette Communications. We've done a fair amount of work with them doing webinars, and we're in the middle of a series of 3 webinars right now on water reuse, which is, you can see here with the EPA, and you can get in and take a more in-depth look at water reuse. Water reuse, one of the reasons we're doing that webinar series is water reuse is a cornerstone to solving the water crisis. Because if you think about it, it's a little bit strange that we use the same water that's pumped into the house to drink, to wash our car, to wash our clothes, and flush our toilets. There's no need to have that kind of purity in all those areas. So we partner with all of these companies, and certainly there's globalwaterworks.org. You can go up on your phone and join Global Waterworks, and simply by putting in your email address. So what's going on here? We're looking at a global water crisis that by 2030 there's going to be a 40% separation between the supply of water, of quality water, and the demand. So that the demand will outstrip the supply by 40%. And we're rapidly approaching that for many, many reasons. And we'll talk about that through the presentation. But that certainly is significant, and that's not always in third world countries. I was reading last night, there's 500,000 homes today in the United States that do not have plumbing in them, which is stunning. There's over 1 million people in the United States today that do not have ready access to quality water. You go on, that's West Coast, we've all heard about Flint, Michigan, certainly New Jersey, Louisiana, throughout
So you're projecting in 2030 is going to be a 40% gap.
Exactly. By 2030, there'll be that gap. But the gap right now is widening. So it's moving today, and it'll get to 40% by 2030. Exactly right.
I think your question was, what is it now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's that gap right now?
That's a good question.
It's about 20%, but it's in areas that are just not equipped. So it's not felt here, it's felt in, sub-Saharan Africa, in India, and places that don't have the infrastructure to support their use.
And certainly, part of the challenge there is many people that don't have access to quality water also don't have electricity. So how do you power them? Most of our water goes to agriculture. That's globally. So all the things we do with water, and then it ends up in growing corn. Less than 40%, here only 33% of utilities have embraced smart technology. The technology's there. The challenge is that too few utilities have embraced the technology, have brought it in, introduced it, and put it to use. And it's truly, truly available, which, and we'll talk as we go through this about predictive maintenance, about understand the quality of your infrastructure, looking at lead in the water without digging a hole. So there's a lot of technology out there that's available that is not being used. It's being used very limited. Only 53% of utilities have done anything with reuse. So reuse in the home, reuse in commercial properties, to reuse the water in the property for other things, right? So you can reuse the water to take the water that's used, put it through a reuse cycle through some form of filtration, and use it for watering the garden, the lawn, and so on, so on. So flushing the toilets and so on and so forth. So these are areas that are real and are really causing that whole growing to that whole 40% gap. So what's the issue? We have a number of issues in the water industry which are real and recognized. And the first one is the industry is silent. You think about it, today there are about 35,000 water utilities in the United States. I mean, that's hard to comprehend considering only 50 states and that kind of thing. So, and they're siloed because every one of those utilities is working with their own issues and their own problems and their own customers, and they really stay in their silo. With that, the cross-communication is limited. Certainly forums like this have those kind of communications, but then what happens is you have the communication here, and then people, well, I'll see you next year, kind of thing. And what do you do for 365 days and to get it done? So the silos are real, they exist, and they are a huge challenge to the industry. One of the things that Global Water Works does is bridge those silos. The technology and the infrastructure within the utilities is complex. It's technical and it's complex, and that requires that the utilities have strong technical partnerships that can partner with them, work with them to maintain their operation and grow their operation. So rather than, for example, like you're replacing pipe in the ground, we can replace pipe in the ground, which certainly needs to be done. But if we replace it and add some technology which will prevent future failures or predict future failures, we're advancing our capabilities. And that is not being done to the great extent. Certainly you've seen a lot of this. The infrastructure is damaged, but once again, just replacing it straight up is not really the solution. The solution is replace it and add technology to monitor it. Generational workers is retiring. So within the water industry, the knowledge is retiring out. It's aging out. It's aging out. A good part of that is that many of those people that are aging out are passionate about water, and they want to stay in water. So we've created a place in Global Water Works called Global Water Heroes, where those people can come in and consult and work with utilities, work with corporations, work with contractors based on their knowledge of water. But this is truly an issue. And that issue gets compounded because the next level of people coming in are the next gen, right? What's the next gen used to? They're used to digital. They've been on computers for a relatively long time, and people don't look at the water industry as technically capable. And so people are not coming out of, the colleges, the junior colleges, and with the idea of going into water, because it's not within their way of thinking, within the work that they've learned, in what they've been working with all their life, in their youth. So bringing in the next generation is challenging. And so the opening between it retiring out and having challenge to bring in new talent is creating a huge gap as we go forward. So those issues, the siloing, the infrastructure, the lack of technology, the aging out of the workforce, the challenge of hiring a new workforce that would be next generation is really compounded by the fact that people are not connected to their water. Water comes out of the tap and it's free. Until you have a crisis, starts coming out of brown, or it doesn't come out, people don't have, they're just not connected to it. I live in Hartwell, Georgia, and it's fundamentally, we live on a lake. Actually, Lake Hartwell has a longer shoreline than California. It's a massive man-made lake by the Army Corps of Engineers. And it's half in Georgia and half in South Carolina. And many of our friends are farmers. And the one thing that I realized, we were having dinner with one of our friends who has about 600 or 800 acres and grows corn and that kind of thing. He is connected to his water. He knows when it's going to rain. He knows what's in the ground. He knows, because water is not only his lifeblood for himself, but for his livelihood. So he is because of the need, he's totally connected with his water. But people in general are not connected with their water. They grow up and it comes out of the tap. And that's interesting because the fact is that people, you start the day with water and you end the day with water. You probably start the day brushing your teeth, you end the day brushing your teeth. And water is, you can live for 3 minutes without oxygen, but only 3 days without water. It's critical to life. But people are not connected to it. It's just there. And they think that it's free. So what happens here? We try to connect people to their water they're not connected with a water heater, that's for sure. They're not connected by their water bill. So what has to happen? We've done within our community, every Tuesday we do a survey or a poll. We've done many polls on connecting people to their water. And number one all the time in those polls is education. How do you get people connected with their water? You educate them. You educate them in many different ways, and you educate them starting at very young ages, so that they grow up thinking about their water. In Israel, or in the United States, the children sing "Rain, rain, go away, come again another day." In Israel, they sing "Rain, rain, come and stay," because of the water. Because Israel's 67% desert, and they've solved the water problem, but they are as a population connected to their water. So education is very important. Conversation. Social media, so it's so that water is getting out there and getting in front of people in the mediums that they're used to working with, making people aware, and then collaborating and letting people's voices be heard, and that's collaborating with utilities and contractors and engineers and homeowners and builders and commercial building managers. It's all the people that are involved with water but are not connected to their water, and getting them to understand it, which connecting people to the water makes it a lot easier. Water right now is going up in price at the highest rate of any utility, of any source. But it started at a very low rate. So the incremental increases are not really enough to fund the demand for infrastructure change, additional technology, and so on and so forth. So you look at it and you say, are we in a perfect storm? All of these things are going on in water. Are we in a perfect storm? Well, you can look at it that way, or you can look at it that it's opportunity. We look at it at Global Waterworks that there's all this opportunity there for people to advance and make huge advancements with very little investment and make dramatic changes. And we'll talk about that. So how we look at water is like this. So, up to this point, Jay, what are you thinking?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm not exactly sure what all type of technologies you're referring to implementing, but, I guess maybe one of the reasons it's difficult to get done is what's the cost associated with implementing that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So I think that's a big holdback as far as any of that stuff's concerned.
We agree with you, absolutely. So, and certainly, you probably see that firsthand, and we'll definitely talk about that. We'll talk about the technologies that we're talking about, which are broad, and certainly the implementation. So when somebody looks at, this is certainly addressed to the utility, is to be interested in where do they go to find answers? Your questions right now, where do the people go to find answers like that? And we'll show you that. Are they currently advancing technology? As you see, only 33% of utilities are working with smart technology, so it is very limited across the board. And it's more than likely that 33% is more in the large utilities than in the rural or the small utilities. And there's 30 or 35,000 utilities out there. How do they evaluate technology? Certainly, I live in certainly a small community, and Pat Dorn is the director of public utility, and his hair is constantly on fire. I mean, you have to think now. He's the county, not the city. Now, Hartwell, the city is about 5,000 people. The county is fairly large, but he's always dealing with an issue. He's in the field dealing with an issue. He doesn't have time to evaluate technology. He doesn't have the money to hire people to evaluate technology. Certainly that, and even given that, whether he has the money to implement or not. So the people who are running the utilities are not 24/7, but certainly, their days are full dealing with the issues that they deal with. There's 857 water main breaks in the United States every single day. I mean, you have to think about that. That's and certainly
A little like me.
that's your life, right? So how do they evaluate technology? And then how do they measure results for success? Because certainly most utilities are public, and so they do, when they implement a solution, they need their answer. They have to answer certainly to their constituents. What questions do they ask when they're reviewing technology? What should we do? How do we proceed? And has anyone done it before? Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, I was just curious, what are your perspectives on this, Jay? As you're looking at technology, where do you go to find it? And what are your motivators for making shifts or updates to technology?
Well, really, I mean, utility companies would be the motivators, because they're the one paying for it. I mean,
Yeah.
would we be against using technology? No, but what are they gonna pay for?
Right.
And so, I mean, this all falls back on them essentially, as far as we'll put in the ground whatever you want in the ground.
Yeah, good.
What do you want in the ground?
Mhm.
What do you wanna pay for?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of that would be our fallback from it, is utility.
Yeah,
Mhm.
good. Thanks.
So Global Waterworks, getting into Global Waterworks a little bit here, there's an ecosystem out there that is technology, it's process, it's experts and people, and what Global Waterworks does is bring it together. We're the only organization that brings together through collaboration, through one-on-one conversation, through communication hubs, through journeys, through a technology database that is very significant, the largest searchable database in the industry. We bring the ecosystem together so anybody can come into the community. It's free. Once you just register, it's free. And they can come into the community and look for solutions to problems, whatever that issue is. And we'll talk about how that's done. So we sit in the center bringing the ecosystem together. And that was the design and the vision that Mary had when she founded Global Waterworks 6 years ago. So here's the database. This is a snapshot of our database. Right now there's about 110 companies in there. It's searchable, I'll show that. It's every's not a good word. Just about every area of water is covered within this database. And we're adding new technologies to the database every week. Every technology in here is proven, it's installed somewhere in the world, and usually many places within the world, and it's proven through case studies and so on and so forth. So when you go into the database, and anybody who's a member of Global Waterworks, this is available, you go in, and first of all, you go in and you search on any topic or company. You just key in a search word. Reuse, lead, infrastructure, main break, whatever it might be. Once you search on that, it will then bring up and highlight the companies that deal with that issue. And normally there's going to be, and I'll show it, there's going to be at least 2 or 3 different companies that deal with the issue in a different way. And what we will do is highlight all those companies in the database for you. Then you can go and you can click on the company and bring it up. This happens to be Waterly, happens to be here at the show. It's been highlighted, and when you bring it up, what you'll look at is the company's URL, a description of the company, a description of their application, a video presentation of the company, and case studies on their successful installations. So we give enough information here for anybody who goes in here to begin to make their evaluation. So maybe they look at 2 or 3 different companies, and then at that point they've got all the information to contact that company and have the company come in and do the evaluation to see how they can work together. This is extensive. This is the foundation. The foundation of Global Waterworks is technology. The power is in collaboration, communication, and connecting. So in there, when you get down through the companies, you will see case studies. And these are sample of case studies from different companies, whether it's Smart Cover for sewers, whether it's Waterly for data collection, whether it's OSIsoft for data analytics. You'll go in and you'll be able to look at the case studies and look at installations that have been done with the technology, which are like yours. So what we're trying to do here is a service to the industry to provide the information to make a technology decision, and then determine cost, and certainly then there's budgeting issues. So we said we're going to do 5 quick wins. We're going to talk about 5 different areas which you can go into Global Waterworks and come away with the information to go and have a win. And these are the 5 right here. We'll talk about them individually. So monitoring the underground infrastructure. You know, what we know is when the water main breaks, we have a problem, right? Or the sewers, you know, the sewers start overflowing. What about 600 utilities know is in advance they're monitoring this. So they can, in advance, through technology, understand the status of the water mains, the status of the sewers, the smart cover, the overall, what's going on, and be able to be predictive. Technologies that do that are these here, and these are in our database, smart cover, and ADS. So by the use of these technologies, so then you've got to look at, certainly in the cost, the cost of having a break, having a failure, or the cost of installing technology to anticipate.
Well, and I'll just comment on
Go ahead.
that. Like for just $5,000, you can have a monitor sitting over a sewer line that tells you the level so that your operators can sleep at night. And they can get advance alerts to their phone that say, you know, the level's rising, and they can set the alerts so that they're notified at such and such a level. And just that $5,000, I interviewed about 100 utilities who were using it, gave them peace of mind because they were at those hot spots in a city that would trigger problems that unfortunately would cause the overflow and so much cleanup work. And so it alleviates the risk as well as the process of accounting and then subsequent compliance and consent decrees that result from those overflows.
Yeah, Global Water, we're agnostic. We review the technologies and put them into our technology database and make them available to people to make decisions. So, and then certainly looking at challenges and problems that utilities have, and we're trying to address those in our technologies. That's after the conversation with utilities. So then, predict pump failure. Very interesting. So, common scene is a pump failure. And many people don't know this, but the flooding in New Orleans on the last hurricane was not so much from the hurricane, but the pumps failed. They didn't pump out the water. And so their large pumps failed. Whereas you can do predictive maintenance on pumps to understand what the situation, and this is, you know, there's a lot of different sensors on this, whether it's vibration or how the pump's operating, but then the idea is to do predictive maintenance on pumps. And there are a number of different companies that do that. So, and certainly pumps are at the heart of every utility.
Yeah, and just to Jay's comment on the time and the cost for utilities to do these things, many of these things that we're talking about can be implemented within 8 weeks of a purchase order and under $20,000 for a program. So the goal is to add to.
Training and everything is going to be involved in that, learning program.
Right, a lot of them come with complete support to a help desk and remote monitoring, and so what's very interesting is that the technology is not as much the hurdle as the human interaction. Like they can have these things set up so they provide alerts, but the utility, the provider will actually call the technician and say, hey, by the way, do you know there's been an alert going on your system for a long time? And they said, well, really? I didn't think that was really a legitimate alert because there's so many false positives in the past on technology. And they said, no, that's a legitimate alert. Can you please go check it? And so the hand-holding that these technology providers now offer, knowing that your utility leaders, and you guys are also busy, is sort of the reason why these technologies are now getting accepted and really making an impact.
So many of them have control rooms where they're looking at and monitoring all their installations. So they can see when an alert is happening in this part of the country and see what kind of reaction there is to it.
Mm-hmm.
Drinking water, short-term drinking water. Certainly we've seen hurricanes, we've seen tornadoes, flooding, water main breaks. So, you know, the normal solution is to bring in plastic, right? Cart in truckloads of plastic bottles, which no matter what we do, only about 9% of what we recycle in plastic actually gets recycled. The rest ends up in the ocean or in some landfill somewhere. Whereas there are companies like WaterGen, which is atmospheric water, Water Fleet, which brings in literally a semi-trailer, and it will clean the water within the trailer. It'll also do waste management. And then Vivo Blue, which is filters. You know, Vivo Blue for $60, you can provide a filter that will provide enough water for a household for a day, and continuing. You know, and the one filter will last 2 years. With Water Fleet, they're on call whenever there's an alert, as there were recently with hurricanes. Their trucks are ready to go into place. And you have to think about, I'm sure you do involved in water, it was interesting when they had the hurricanes last year in Texas. One of their big wins was the Albertsons grocery store. And I said, oh, so were they providing water at the so people can come and get it? And he said, no, we provide fresh water so they could wash the produce. So, and besides fresh water for drinking. So all of these, when there's a short-term water need for hygiene and drinking, whether it's the fires in the west or the hurricanes in the southeast, these people are available. Connecting customers with their water. We talked about this earlier, that connecting customers with their water, we feel, as we see this, is an underlying secret. Because people, like I said before, are not connected to their water. Water comes out of the tap and it's free. So, and what we know about our water is what's on the meter, right? Here we have, that's actually an illustration of an application that's been installed in the UK at 750,000 locations, where those people on a very simple gaming application take about 10 minutes to identify how they use water, and then that information is consolidated back to the utilities so they can see how people are using their water. This much for dishwashers, showers, toilets, so on and so forth. The point, though, very importantly, is it connects the people to their water. Because you sit down and talk to somebody and they say, well, I don't know that much about water. We're writing a children's book right now that'll be available in grade schools. You know, if you're thinking, not many of you are old enough to go back to the late 60s actually it was the early 60s when it was, we had garbage all over the streets, and they came out with the campaign of Don't Be a Litter Bug. And the little bug and the thing. And that was in the schools and in the mass media. But the children were tuned to that. So if they're sitting in the back seat of the car and their dad is going like this, the child from the back seat, Dad, don't be a litter bug. Well, we think it's important to educate, children. So I sit down and I talk to children about their water. I say, we don't know anything about water. I said, you don't. So you brush my teeth. And your mom washes dishes, and your mom washes clothes, and your dad washes the car, and you water the plants, and you flush it. Oh yeah, we use a lot of water. And they get connected to their water. And the book is the intention to do that. So how do you do this? There's a number of companies here. H2O connected up there is a wireless remote toilet monitor. So a leaky toilet will leak about 200 gallons of water a day. In the United States alone, there are 300 million toilets. Or actually more, like they say there's 317 million, but there's 300 million toilets in the U.S. And the claim is that on every day, 20% of those toilets, 60 million, are leaking. The math, 200 times 60 million. 200 gallons a day times 60 million. Well, H2O Connect has inexpensive monitors you put on the toilet and they'll tell you if your toilet's leaking. Whether it's in a hotel, commercial building, or in a home. Drupal, another interesting technology, that'll tell you water use, for example, in a commercial bathroom. So you know how much water is being used in the urinals, in the toilets, in the sinks, so that you can understand where the water is being used. And there's a couple of savings there. One is, if the bathroom's not being used, you can monitor and it's not being used, you don't have to clean it. So you cut down on cost of cleaning, but also you know where your water is being used. And certainly it tees you up for doing water reuse. And then Get Water Fit, that's the application I talked about earlier, that's on the phone, that's installed in 750,000 homes in the UK. We are bringing that to the United States in the first quarter of this year. We're going to do a couple of tests in 3 different cities, and then we're going to expand it across the country. It costs about $10 a home to install this, and we're looking for sponsors to put that in. To get people connected. If people connect with their water, they will be more concerned about it, and it'll be more of a reality. You know, turn off the water when you're brushing your teeth or shaving. If only fill up the dishwasher, only run the dishwasher when it's full, only run the washing machine when it's full. So get connected with their water, try and cut down on the usage. And number 5, turn wastewater into nutrients. There's a number of companies that do this, and so you know the current approach certainly wastewater is waste. You can go into you can save energy by treating wastewater on site. And there's a number of different wastewater and, let's say, polluted water. There's a number of companies that do that, and like AMS there is a company that will determine the metals in the water, lead and so forth, and take it out and turn it to clean and quality water. New on the bottom there takes brackish water and turns it into clean water. And Fluence and Epic Clean Tech do similar things. So you can take water that is not available for drinking and hygiene and turn it into it. And in many of these technologies, you can do it on site. Saving cost, saving time, saving money. The biggest win comes when we connect to water. When we connect water over the silos and we connect people to their water. And that's where we get the biggest win in water. So Global Waterworks is a community across the globe. We're in 88 countries, like I said, and we're very strong in the United States. As you've seen here, our foundation is in technology and searching. Our power is in the collaboration. Because we're connecting people and process and experts to identify the journeys that utilities can take from where they are to where they need to be in any area. Whether they've got an algae problem, a lead problem, a brackish water problem, we can walk them through that step by step. And it's all done 24/7, 365 days a year. Once again, the sources of insight are these. You can all join globalwaterworks.org. It's free. All of the capabilities of Global Waterworks are then available to you all the time. So the potential impact is worth it. It's totally worth it. The impact of technology, the impact of connecting people to water, the impact of collaborating and having conversations, the impact of addressing the issues before they become major issues. We're in it together. It's everybody together. We can't do this alone. You can't do it alone. Water is a huge issue. And it's huge to all of us globally. And if you bring the people and the process and the technology together, communicate around the technology and around the process, we can solve it. Because our mission at Global Waterworks is to solve the global water crisis. That crisis that we're heading toward, that by 2030 there's going to be a gap of 40% between the supply of water and the demand for water. Our mission is to solve the global water crisis in this generation. Everything is there to do it. The ecosystem is there. We sit in the middle with our people, working together to make it happen. Thank you. Thanks, Jay. You sat through the whole thing. You didn't run out.